Going back, if you are online and would like to speak, raise your hand. Seeing none. Okay, it's just not on there.
It just didn't.
So I grabbed this from the town board of ed website. I grabbed this agenda. So I don't know if that was.
I don't know why. I don't know what the difference is. I know that some people have been out, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
when
so
they published it. What I would
But
suggest
they're
is you still have it on the agenda. You can still make a motion to.
So then let me go to that. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the, is that July 28th?
Yeah.
Special meeting,
So moved.
I'll second that with a question.
please.
I don't feel, I want to make sure people have an opportunity, if they didn't get a chance before now, to approve that. Because it wasn't on the document they were viewing. Could we approve these minutes the next meeting? Is that, I know it's not a huge deal, but it's, you know, just being consistent, having the materials. It's on mine.
What you do,
It's available on mine, but if
It's on mine.
everybody had.
Yeah, it's on mine.
the only thing is it's just not explicitly stated as July.
Okay,
Got you.
Okay,
Okay.
but it does have,
On the agenda itself.
the agenda does give you the
No.
item.
To tell you what, let's go ahead with the vote. Yeah, if people don't feel comfortable, obviously we can abstain.
Sure.
If the motion,
I wasn't here, so.
fair enough. If the motion fails, then we'll, yes. You still want to say?
No, you're good. Yes, I'll second.
Okay,
Thank you for the clarification.
perfectly understand. Discussion?
We just had it.
I was just, when I read through it, I was a little, regarding the solar contract, I thought. And I don't know, maybe the wording is fine, but I thought. It was a little more pointed that we wanted to include. When Dr. Bullock went to town about, getting some of that money back. And maybe I'm missing it. I didn't see it as explicitly as what I felt like I said. So that we wanted the Board of Ed to get credit for, kind of taking on this capital project. First of all, saving the town $1.5 million on the roof. And secondly, that then it was going to kind of come to us to have to pay for. So we wanted the town to credit us back that in some way. I don't know, maybe it's here. I didn't kind of get it in there, so
It is in there for Remy,
Okay.
and after you and I talked about that, I went back and looked,
okay,
and it's on page 5.
okay,
And it says a brief discussion took place regarding if they could leverage the savings in the capital plan recognized by including the THS roof in the project for the Board of Ed.
oh, okay.
So that kind of
All
was the sentence encompassing our discussion.
Okay.
I would agree with you. I don't think it fully encompasses how adamant we were that we should see something.
Right, I guess that's what I'm
That
saying.
we should see something, but I'm not sure, that is necessarily necessary at this point because we have no idea
Okay.
if we can or if the town will even acknowledge that.
But we do have it noted.
But it is noted.
It'll be documented there as well as today's.
Okay, all right, okay, good, I'm good then.
Other discussion? All right. Seeing none. Let's vote. Reenie,
Aye.
Brian,
Abstain.
Bill,
Aye.
Jaden,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Ken.
Abstain.
Passes. And thank you for getting that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, correspondence.
We had 2 emails come in the last few weeks. One of them was concerning the process to get old records of school attendance that the superintendent has taken care of. And the other was a question concerning the drama stipend and what the price per child for the drama program would be, and if they could start fundraising now. And again, Dr. Willett was addressing that.
Right, sounds good. Points of information, would anybody from the board like to speak? All right. Seeing none. Committee and liaison reports. Cricket,
Nothing to.
communication.
We have an agenda, we have a meeting next Wednesday,
Next. Next.
Wednesday,
Okay.
20th.
All right, FFC?
We'll also be in the meeting next week. Nothing to report.
Yeah. Policy.
I will continue the rounds of nothing to report.
Consistency. All right, negotiations.
Negotiations with the administrators are ongoing.
Copy, thank you. Right, I have no chair report for today. Dr. Willett, item K1, monthly financial report.
So as this is the first report of fiscal year, just for the end of year, typically we wrap it up to June. We did not have a meeting in June. We haven't had one since. So this communication gives you the end of year balance June 30th as of this moment in time. Usually we do an update on this in September again. Because there are still some things that may clear, that were encumbered and so on. But as of this report, at the moment in time that we did it, the balance was 330,342, which is 0.75% of our budget for the year. So, we ended under 1% of the budget for the year. Just as a friendly reminder that out of that 330, 188 is going to be utilized for the TMS auditorium seating. So really that's something more like what would be remaining in, ERF is something more like 142 or something from this. So, as it goes on to state that 72,000 there is potentially encumbered, so we're waiting for that to clear. So that's kind of where we are as of this moment in time. The sheet that we included is our standard sheet for the monthly reports. I don't think I can get that any bigger, unfortunately. Let's see if I can go that up. Yeah, just so those people at home might actually be able to see it bigger than we see it. It's also it's just reflecting the same thing. This is actually for the month that reflects the 330, 342, and just know that there is still some money encumbered there, and that number will adjust. Probably not a lot, but some, maybe to the tune of that 70, and it'll be reissued in September, just as an update. But that's how we ended the year, and this is the first opportunity to kind of report on the end of the year piece. And then the object summary report for the new year is also included. There's not much to say about the object report for the new year because there's not a lot of spending that has occurred yet. So, some basic things here, code 130, stipends, all of these things that you're generally very familiar with. To say something is over budget at the moment doesn't make any sense because, so the over-unders, there's really not much to talk about for our first month over this year. And the close of last month was the 330. I can talk a little bit about kind of how it ended. Overtime was over a bit. Stipends still kind of were a little bit balanced out. Employee benefits were kind of what we expected, within 10,000. Health life insurance, we knew that was going to be a little over, and it was. So the year ended more or less where we expected it to land. And that's not a bad, given all that we were concerned about, it's not a bad way to end. We also wanted to make sure we had the 188 So between the two reports, you get a sense of, and they are included in the packet, where we ended and what the first month has in it.
Bill?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, on the 25-26 budget, we included a lot of pre-purchases. Where would that 330 number be if we wouldn't have had to do those pre-purchases approximately?
I would probably put it from a material pre-purchase point of view, 'cause we also did a lot of energy offset, that type of thing, and we had 330 out of 80 UISF fund, and there's a whole bunch of movement that happened there. 100, maybe,
About 100?
I would say, for materials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that would put us approximately 430. So if we take that 430 number, where historically, is that about where we are normally, about 1%?
I would say that it's generally, average is probably a little lower than that, but it's not crazy for, from year to year, it's not an insane amount to have, and we didn't go overboard. I mean, 10-22 at the end of the year, you should and can expend on a bunch of things. We didn't do that. We did that in a very modest and controlled way because we wanted to make sure we have the 188 to cover the capital. So we actually didn't spend on everything we might have, because we wanted to make sure we had the 188. We were being kind of conservative. So we did some pre-purchasing, but, we were being conservative about it. I would say that it's been higher than this and it's been lower than this. And the average is probably a little lower than this. And it was probably not as low as our average because we just wanted to make sure we didn't come short of the 188 because we committed that as part of our budget season. We
Flip-flop.
yeah, so we had to commit that. So, we were making sure that was available. Plus, you'll still see this fluctuate in a month. As those encumbrances are either cleared or applied. It was about 70,000 of them, 72,000.
Was it anybody? Ready?
So just in case if my math is off, according to this, if we had 330 left over, we have 72 in encumbrances and we have to pay 188, I'm coming up with that leaves roughly $70,000 on
If
split
the
four.
72 comes out of this.
Yeah, if the
it's just
72
a
goes,
good- We don't have,
so you're about 70,000
we
left
would not have, yeah. Yes, for
That
ERF,
would-
for ERF.
to go, yeah,
To be
potentially
in our ERF, it would be somewhere in that range.
in that. Okay, just
And if
wanted,
we're lucky, it'd be a little bit more. But
So.
Right.
So I'm just gonna kind of piggyback just on a little bit of what Bill was saying about the pre-purchases. Are these falling under the instructional supplies and materials or?
well, they fell under a lot of, I have to go back to, it's online right now, those things, some of the stuff that we decided during the budget process, it was listed there. We have to go back through that and say, for me to give you the full articulation of it. But I would say, yeah, I mean, it was going to be in things like that, paper, supplies, something that wouldn't go bad,
All right,
And the thing about that is when you do it, it then kind of lowers your budget for the coming year. So you might end up needing to do it again, it's this cycle. Once that's done, we've been kind of in that cycle. Of having to make it up, but. Yeah, I mean, if you go across the Board of Ed's budgets across the state, being in the range we're in, roughly, and I would say 0.3, depending on how you look at it with the encumbrances and the TMS auditorium seating and all that, you're looking at a 0.37 to a 0.75. And even if you throw in some of the pre-purchasing, maybe even, a little less than 1, that's not crazy for a Board of Education budget. To be anywhere in that range of 0.3 to 1% is not a ridiculous thing to have. Be the case for boards of it.
all right. That's fine for now, thanks.
Anybody else? So Dr. Willett, one question, just based on what you saw last year and the past couple of years. looking forward, are there any of the areas where you're not necessarily freezing now, but you're watching pretty closely, expecting to have to?
Yeah, I mean, legal, we have to watch with extremely, you know, closely. I think it's gonna be very tight because, we really, lowballed that one well below what we are typically spending. So as I said, I'm doing everything I can not to engage, with and use a lot of the knowledge we have. I would say that, I think energy is going to gonna be a rising hit for us. There seems to be more signaling of additional fees that, seem to be getting considered right now, which they seem to be able to do with impunity. And I don't think Pete and I were looking at it, but not understanding how it can just, happen like that. So there may be increased fees and things like that they add on to the electric bills and so on, which might impact schools and towns. I would say that, the way we budgeted was very, very tight, so we're gonna be looking at everything very carefully. That's the best answer I can give, but I would say legal is in the top of my head. Anything energy is in the top of my head. Obviously insurance. I hope we have a good year with that, but the way we structure it, the state is making a lot of changes. It's going to be an interesting year across the whole state with respect to how, insurance is handled in districts. I think people are going to be trying to draw, place districts and towns to the state plan. And there's a lot of information about that, why that can be pretty risky too. So, I think it's going to be an interesting year.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none. Dr. Willett, item K2, tuition rates.
So every year we report the tuition rates to the Board of Education. And the tuition rates are calculated basically on our costs with some additional funding added to the tuition rate to cover anything that might be necessary for a student who might tuition into the district. So these tuition rates are higher than the per pupil expenditure rates that we have. But that's purposeful, and districts do that because you're charging basically a service fee for coming to the district. And there can be things that might be necessary for a student that comes from out of town that may not be necessary for a student from in town. So we set these rates based on, our PPE plus, a certain amount, considering those things. And each year it's pretty much in the close ballpark to where it was before, although it's been rising over the years as the PPE has been rising per pupil expenditure.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
What the percentage increase is from last year's rates, to this year's rates, or?
Off the top of my head,
I
no.
don't have anything comparing this, whether these are good, bad, or not, or.
Yeah, I can give that to you in a minute if you want it.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
But you might wanna. That's a little bit, yeah.
All right.
I would say that I give you a ballpark, I'll do it, it's generalized, and I can give you one, I have to go get the rates from last year to do that, but I would say that it's within. Just in general.
And is there a number off topic that how many people are paying this tuition rate in the district?
There's no one tuitioning in right now,
Oh, zero?
zero. I mean, this is different than open choice. This is if someone, wanted to just for whatever reason come here other than South Windsor, or somewhere else. I would say it's somewhere in the zone of maybe 0.08, 0.08%, something like that.
No, of an increase.
It's not a ton, yeah.
Do you think with all the costs that we are incurring in the district, that having less than a 1% raise in tuition rate is the right approach? I mean, He was looking at all.
Well,
the
these
costs
are,
that we're
this, you're
incurring.
talking about an increase from last year to this year, that's,
Yeah, well, I'm also
So, for
looking at
instance-
I mean, look at the cost of increase just in salaries alone, or the trash pickup, or
yeah.
those computers, or whatever we're buying and using, it's well more than 0.8%.
Well, but that's not the difference between the PPE and our charge, it's just the difference maybe in the K2 from one year to the next. For instance, our per pupil expenditure is about $5,000 less than that, than the Birch Grove number. So it's based on actuals, you know, of how much it would cost from last year to this year, and then adding a certain buffer. And so there's a $5,000 difference between what you're technically spending and what you're getting at, say, Tuesday.
If somebody came in.
K2 example, you are going to get more money than what they're putting out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But we're currently at zero doing this.
We are, because it's rare. What some districts are doing now is they are actually allowing their staff to have their own children come to the district, but they're not charging them something like that. I think it's either there's no charge or it's in the zone of 0 to 5,000. And the reason they do that is they think it helps increase their enrollment and that type of thing. But this kind of thing is rare. I mean, this is kind of, you may get one child, two children in a span of a year or 2 year, a few years. It's not coming into a program, you know? So it's not, you're not gonna get 10 kids coming in. It's gonna be one here or there. And it might be, maybe a child had an experience in a neighboring district that was very, very unfavorable. And we make a call from that district saying, look, this student really needs a reset. We'd like to have the student come to your district rather than our district because, you know, there might have been something really negative that happened with interaction with other kids. And that district may pay our district money to have the child come. And that's how this happens. Sometimes on a one-off kind of case, there'd be kids that maybe would be better off not in the place they're in because of things that happen. And they're not like expulsion situations, they're life complexity situations. And so districts will sometimes send a child to another place, but they'll usually pay a rate like that.
All right, thank you. I understand a lot better now. Thank you.
Anybody?
Yeah, I got a question.
Please.
When would a special education tuition rate kick in?
If a student came to be part of our LEAP program,
Okay,
and we have had that happen. But we're not, a lot of districts are having started their own LEAP programs. And, you know, we also don't, we hire pretty much exactly what we need for the program. If we were going to expand that program, we would have to hire staff in advance of the expansion. Because you can't, you know, have children show up and have no one to help. So you have to make an investment to expand it first, and then you start really recruiting. Right now, our program isn't designed to recruit, it's designed to manage the number of kids we have. And once in a while, we'll get one, you know, from another place for a little while, but it's not usually. It has to do more with legal things and residency and different things like that that get resolved, and then the child's back to wherever they principal.
So good. All right. We're gonna have to steal that life complexity situations. All right.
There's been so many different.
It's somebody that feels like that umbrella is fine. All right, moving on to board action and one policy 5402.
So you have read this already or had some experience with it already. We're just updating the 5402 meal charging language. It's essentially an update to Shipwin's model policy. The updated policy has language in it now that refers very directly to the USDA's Food and Nutrition Services programming. There's a paragraph that Shipwin felt like should be added to their policy, so we added the paragraph. The rest of it is the same. So it's just updating the policy as per Shipwin's advice and advisement, and there was a paragraph in there that, you know, they recommended including.
Dana, as policy chair, any comments?
Can you hear me?
Ma'am?
No, Dr. Willett pretty much hit most of it. A lot of it was just necessary updates. So it was pretty quick and cut and dry.
Any discussion?
My phone just told, or my watch just told me I'm stressed.
Oh.
Lucky I get these little notifications.
Breathe deeply. I think this policy will be good. Yeah. That's very concerned over being French.
That's why I don't wear the watch.
I will entertain a motion to approve it.
Motion to authorize the superintendent to update policy 5402 with the changes presented in the June 11, 2025 meeting.
Second,
Discussion. All right, hearing none. Rini,
aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
all right, Jaden,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
and Dan.
Aye.
Excellent. Will the policy passes? Item N2, policy 9120, conflict of interest.
This one was also presented earlier, and this is the second read / move to action. As you may recall, there were 4 items that used to be part of the conflict of interest policy. There was no member of the Board of Education shall be employed by the board in any position in the school system. Number 2 is if any member of the board is employed contrary to the provisions of the bylaw, the office to which he or she was elected or appointed shall become vacant. Those are recommended to remain in Shipwin's advisement. However, 3 and 4 were not part of what Shipwin had as their model policy. So 3 is the immediate family, spouse, parents, children of an active member of the Board of Education, Town Council, the superintendent of schools and the town manager shall not be appointed for permanent employment in the school district or kind of a small district. And some of you might have a child at some point that either is going to work in a school or a spouse. So it's unnecessary. It's not part of Shipman's advisement, and you don't have to have it. So that was why it was brought up originally. It's not inconceivable that some people might not actually run if they thought they would impact their child's ability to get something, or a spouse. And then the other one is board members are encouraged to resign from the board. A member of their immediate family, spouse, parent, children wishes to apply for a permanent position. Again, it's not necessary if it ever came up that one of you had a child, say, that became a teacher, or maybe a spouse that became a teacher or significant other. If we ever did have to have proceedings with respect to that person, which we never would, you would just recuse yourself. So then Jessica would tell you to recuse yourself. But that's how you can handle it. You don't have to prohibit it. So
Would that be a requirement to recuse yourself?
Jessica would probably say that, yes, you're compromising. The only other alternative, she'd say either Mr. Jones recuses himself, or the whole board will have to have an independent, council review it, or independent parties review it, like an arbitration force.
Dan, any comments?
Again, we were just streamlining it, making it a little bit, like I said, in partnership with Shipman and Goodwin, and just trying to keep it as streamlined as possible and up to date. So again, Dr. Willett pretty much, it was too wordy. So no, I don't have anything else to add, Tony. I can see you giggling over there. So I'm good over here.
All right, any other discussion?
Do we open ourselves up for this recusal of not putting some language in here regarding that? Because I'm not saying that it ever would happen, but like Bill's saying, if you did have some situation where they didn't want to or weren't required to recuse themselves, then you end up getting into whether it's more legal fees or bigger issues. If somebody feels they need to be involved in whatever family member it might be, that they feel like they're being slighted or their family members being slighted, they might say, I'm not recusing myself, because they want to stand up for their son or whatever it might be.
Well, it's possible. I mean, technically though, something like recusal, you already are in that circumstance in that if your children are in the system and there was ever an expulsion, not that there ever would be, but if a board member's children are in the system, you would have to recuse yourself from a hearing on that too. Like there's things that come up that you may, in the course of your actions as board members, have to, if a business like, when we had the bid and then there's the two, athletic bids, if you were somehow involved with that, you might have to, not vote or abstain or recuse. So you can add extra language. Shipwin's language is those two and only those two. It probably does that because it considers recusal as a regular thing that is typically expected, elected board member.
What
But-
Jessica's recommendation was to streamline it, Dr. Willett, because him having it too wordy is, I don't know. Jessica specifically said to well, I don't know if it was Jessica, but Shipman specifically said to streamline would it behoove us?
Yeah, I mean, we can do what you want, but yes, those two should be sufficient because you would be in that situation in a number of different ways as a board member.
All right.
Dan?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I don't disagree, Brian, that having something in there as a requirement to recuse yourself isn't the worst idea. My brother applied to become I think it was an assistant principal over the last like 3-4 months or so. I think that was a role, Dr. Willett, but like I would have felt horrible if I recused myself and then he was like, oh, thanks for the vote. So I don't know how I would have wanted to handle that, but I mean, it doesn't matter. So, but just wanted to provide my 2 cents there. It wouldn't be a bad idea, Brian.
I kind of agree. I mean, it's all well and fine to assume that everyone's gonna have a good intent. But, sometimes when emotions get involved and family members, whoever they might be, it's not that hard to put a one sentence in there that if you do have a spouse of whatever, you would have to recuse yourself if you're on a board bed.
Agreed.
So that's not particularly wordy or difficult.
No, I would agree that it is easy to add the sentence. I just think, we're pretty consistent with the state model. You could be a state representative, state senator, and make decisions about state police, right? You could make decisions about fire unions. So I don't think we're following anything that in Connecticut's not normal or regular. So I think the simplicity of this just follows sort of where we are in the state as well. And I think it's easy to understand, in my opinion.
So what we could say is we can add a number 3. We could approve it with the addition of a third item that states a board member is required to recuse themselves from any vote pertaining to the permanent employment of
Immediate.
of spouse, parents, or children. I don't know, there's no spices, but of a spouse, parent, or child.
Good. Yeah, to be clear, I'll support that. I'd rather trust the advisement of Shipman and Goodwin than add a sentence in when, again, that sentence is not used at a state level so peculiar, so specifically and so regular. So I'm fine with adding the sentence in, but if we're being advised to keep 1 and 2, I have never gone against the legal analysis in the last 4 years of being on the Board of Ed. I really understand now.
I think, and I could go either way, but I think maybe what it essentially does is, if we don't have it in there and something comes up and a board member refuses to recuse themselves, and we have to go to an independent counsel, as Dr. Willis said, what does that cost us? I think
Said earlier.
just adding that third bullet point in there, even if it's even if it's not something that Shipman and Goodwin say is necessary, think it just saves us whatever that money would be by just adding a third bullet point in there. I don't think it does anything bad. How much good does it do? I don't know either.
Right.
How much bad does it do? I think it just saves us that potential.
No, I'm not disagreeing with any of the points you're making here. All I'm simply saying is, we're seeing the model in other places and its effectiveness, and we're seeing exactly what was recommended to us. So I could, again, to your point, I could go either way on this regardless. But again, the last 4 years, I've gone with what Shipman and Goodwin has told us. It's pretty good legal advice, because I don't have a law degree. And so I just tend to side with, okay, what do you recommend? And if we have 1,000 questions, we have 1,000 questions about that recommendation. But just to sort of signify sort of why I stand where I stand with the addition. I'm fine with adding whatever. Again, I'm fine with adding that stipulation, but we're being told it's not necessary,
Katie,
So bear with me. I'm going to try to articulate this as well as I can. I think that with a policy like this, I think we're better off having it be less specific so that there's less to argue against if there were to be a problem. So nobody could come in, for instance, and say, well, you said spouse, parents, and children, and I don't quite fall into those categories. And then we have to argue about whether.
Katie, you went on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, something popped up in the corner of the screen and I clicked it and apparently it mutes me. But so I think that less specific allows for a broader interpretation of what this means and doesn't pigeonhole the board into, arguments around whether or not we cited what thing is somebody thinks they are and they're on the board. Hopefully that made some sort of sense. Sorry, thanks.
It did. Any other comments? All right, I will entertain a motion with or without the sentence, but please be clear.
Something.
One other option, you have board members required to recuse themselves or abstain from any vote pertaining to the permanent employment of a spouse, parent, or child. You could also say a board member will not be permitted to vote on the permanent employment of a spouse, parent, or child.
Like that.
Entertain a motion.
Oh, hold on, can I?
Go ahead, sorry.
I mean, you're speaking about employment, but before, like, you used an example of like expulsion, or you were talking about like a sports contract earlier, so it's like, those wouldn't count. Yet you still might have a conflict of interest in the
Right.
policy.
But this particular policy is about.
It's only about.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I heard the,
Yeah, when in his example, he grouped it.
maybe I'm looking, had the wrong policy pulled up there when I just scrolled.
Well, it's 9120.
I like how we articulated that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, 9120.
I'll make a motion to,
But I just want, you said this is regarding employment, correct?
Yeah, so
9120.
number one, no member.
This says regard conflict of interest.
It is, but the conflict of interest policy in the 9000 series typically refers to in its language employment. So you can see number one, no member of the Board of Education shall be employed by a board member in any position in the school system. Number two, if any member of the board is employed contrary to the provisions of this, it's usually, this series is about employment. Immediate spouse, members, active member, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, shall not be appointed for permanent employment.
Should we change the title of this policy then?
There are other conflict of
That's with the
interest
series.
policies that
Yeah,
have to
there's
do with
rules
other-
on board member, there's a whole bunch of things. But this is particular to your hiring, and it's meant to prevent nepotism in hiring.
Do you want to cover?
I was just saying, you're saying that this is a conflict of interest about employment, and then are there other conflict of interest things about?
Yeah, there's role of board members.
Role,
There's
right.
other places where things are discussed, but this is pretty explicit about, your hiring, your employment. That's just how this particular 9120 has always been. It's the 9000 series has a certain bent towards, that type of stuff. This is employment. The board, the Shipman policy only has the first two that are highlighted there. In their model policy, that's what they have for this one.
All right. I will go back, I'm probably one person, but I feel like we should. If the policy is regarding employment, it should be somewhere in the title of this. To be very clear that this is regarding employment. That's just my opinion. And I feel whether it's been done. for the
Dr.
last-
Willett, can you just scroll to number 1? It says, no member of the Board of Education shall be employed by the board by any position within the school system. If any member of the board is employed contrary to provisions by this bylaw, the office which he or she is elected appointed shall become vacant. It says employed in both things. The whole point of it is a conflict of interest policy. And then within that, it says employment.
I understood, and I think if I'm understanding Brian's point though, is if the body of it is all about employment, then maybe the title should.
Yes, yes. I'm not disputing 1 and 2. Absolutely, I understand it's about employment now. I'm just saying, I feel like we should have that, but if you guys don't want to, and gals, then that's fine. I mean, but to me, it just seems odd that we don't have it in the title. I'm not saying 40 years ago it was done that way, that we should still be doing that today.
It probably has to do with the series it's in. I have to go back and look at. Each series is aligned to like an integer of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. I have to look at what the main, because we use Shipwin,
Yes,
the 9,000 series has a certain bend to it. So I just, I'd have to look a little deeper to find out why they didn't, why conflict of interest here is listed the way it is. But you have other provisions and policies about what board members can and can't do, and especially in board roles. So it's just where they plop it, and it's just what they call it. We can change the name to anything you want it to be. You're the board. You can make it anything. But I don't know why they didn't say in their private.
Give me a motion. What?
Bill, come on now.
Motion to approve. Policy 9120. With adding a,
Just put some wording in.
oh,
I mean, if you want one of these two, if you're gonna add a item,
yeah, motion to approve, policy 9120. As it's shown, but with the addition of the first option wording for a third bullet point that Dr. Willett has typed up there.
Can you read it?
A board member will not be permitted to vote on the permanent employment of a spouse, parent, or child.
So moved.
Is that okay?
Dan, that's a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Jason?
I hope we feel this way at all levels, not just the Board of Ed. Well, that's all.
Right.
just one thing, and I don't want to too much more confusion than I already have, but I apologize. But I will piggyback what Jaden said under his breath earlier. What if it's an aunt or an uncle or a cousin or a next door neighbor or,
I think you gotta draw the line somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to Katie's point about keeping it general.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
that specific.
But the more I'm talking this
Opening
out,
ourselves up to.
well, in contracts these days, like bereavement, they used to say of a, spouse, that now they just don't say anything because an aunt can have raised the child and be
Well,
closer to them than the mother was. And yes, that's why they don't usually put specifics anymore. But
that's all I need to say.
Any other discussion? I hear you inhale now.
Oh, no, I'm good.
All right. Then we'll vote. Rini,
Aye.
Brian, Bill,
Aye.
and Jaden,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Dr. Willett, motion passes with the addition. All right, public participation. 2-minute time limit, comments limited to the items on this agenda. Anybody in the room, make yourself known. Online, raise your Zoom hand and be called upon. All right, seeing nobody in either place. Points of information. Anybody from the board like to speak?
I am curious if we could get some sort of answer on that, you know, now that it's in our policy. What happens if it is a cousin, you know, something, I'd just be curious if,
Well, right now,
only by technicality.
it's a cousin, you know.
Right, so it's as black and white as that.
Yeah, I mean, you basically, the only thing that is prohibited
Written
for them,
in word.
for a board member to vote on would be spouse or parent or child. So cousin would not be something that would be barred from voting on.
Always updated.
But that doesn't mean that the person couldn't come forward and say, hey, this is my cousin, I'm gonna, I mean, I think that that's what
The other folks in the, you know,
right, but I think that that's what the intent before was, is that, well, you're gonna come forward and say that on your own. Assuming that, with the exception of we're specifically saying these three groups are out, you know, definitely not, if you don't come forward. I don't know, I get what you're saying. You can't eliminate, it's my next door neighbor, it's my people that I lived next door to 10 years ago. I mean, like, the list could get very long after.
right, that's where, you know,
And
I don't know.
I think there's gotta be some level of, it's up to the person's conscience, and
Yeah.
hopefully that they'll be honest and forthcoming.
Good. I guess anyone outside of that would fall under Jessica saying, you need to recuse yourself, or we're gonna go to independent counsel.
But wouldn't she say that? Anyway, because,
Now she doesn't have to for those three specifics.
okay. That's fair. I don't know.
Has this ever happened, Dr. Willett?
Well, that's the matter. What purview do we have? We look over what? Principals? Vice principals, right? And the superintendent.
Your hiring is really for administrative.
Right, well, right, so
But
other,
employment covers termination too. So what might happen is, because the term employment is broad, is it doesn't say just hiring. That means that if a hearing comes up and let's say I move to terminate an employee, then that employee can accept that termination, or they can come to you and they can contest it. If they come to contest it and they're related as a spouse, parent, right? You can't vote one way or the other. Employment's all matters pertaining to employment.
I don't think this hurts us in any way, Jaden.
But this has not come up in the time that I've been here. I haven't had any.
should advocate this, for this to expand. That's what I.
All right, any other points of information? All right, so I will entertain a motion to enter an executive session for the purpose of the superintendent's evaluation.
So moved.
Oh, be inviting the superintendent?
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess we have to propose or motion to enter into executive session with Dr. Willett
You don't have.
at this time.
I'm just letting you know, you could do it and then.
You know, we're gonna have a party, Dr. Willett. I want you to join us.
That's, I'm always happy to be.
Lisa, Jaden, second. Any discussion? Right. Reedy,
Hi.
Brian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jaden,
Bye.
Katie,
Bye.
Dana,
Bye.
Jen,
Bye.
Dan.
Aye.
All right. Take a few minutes, we're entering into executive session, we'll take a few minutes to allow Lisa time.
Back.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Oop, second.
Aye.
All right, any discussion? Reedy,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
all right, Jaden,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
and Dan.
Aye.
All right, thank you all. Have a great day, great week.